Hello, today is May 1st. It's the last month of spring.
May the 1st be with you.
Let's no. We were just talking about how we didn't have to do that joke. We were like, oh, May 4th doesn't fall this month.
We didn't do the May the 4th be with you. We did May the 1st.
You know what?
First.
I think an appropriate fine for that level of humor is $5 billion.
Second only to the Facebook fine that Facebook anticipates from the FTC. Facebook is anticipating that the FTC is going to fine them up to $5 billion for this privacy nonsense.
Ooh.
Which, I mean, if you were Facebook and you were facing a $5 billion fine, wouldn't you want to keep that out of the news?
I think what they're trying to do here is calm down the investors by saying
it's only $5 billion.
5 is the maximum. Well, I think they actually expect it to be like 2.5. So they're saying we're going to double that and just pull that out of the safe that we've got here in the office. So don't worry.
It's underneath the chute, underneath the conference room.
Exactly.
Listen, Tom's got more than that in petty cash.
This is when it's not a big deal. You know what? We just have a few less lattes this month, and it'll be fine. So, but that's not the only federal agency that is interested in Facebook because of the. They did the thing where if you the keyboard's on the desk.
We covered that. We covered this last week.
How unprofessional.
The email thing where it's like they could get your email account and they'll just do stuff. Apparently, the New York Attorney General watches the Level 1 news. No, not really.
They don't do stuff. They do stuff. They would steal your contact list.
Yeah.
Which is pretty disgusting.
Yeah. It's like, prove who you are by signing into your email because we already created a shadow profile for you. Okay. And it's like, oh, look at us just scraping your email without permission.
Yeah. And the New York Attorney General has
you did what now?
Not taken kindly to that. So what? There is another Facebook investigation that's going on.
Again, the walls are closing in around. It's gotta, even if you're not claustrophobic, you've got to feel got to feel that thing when stuff is closing in and getting uncomfortable.
Do you think Zuckerberg will leave, or do you think he's too personally invested into Facebook, as his pet project?
He will burn that thing to the ground before he leaves.
He's probably got all kinds of safeties in him. If they try to Steve Jobs him, it's probably gonna the building's gonna explode or something. I mean, it's probably just gonna be nuts.
Just the sprinklers come on and it's polonium.
That would be effective.
He walks out of his office in a gas mask.
Yeah. I don't think that would stop the polonium.
Well, that's true.
Maybe a full hazmat.
It'll be like the scene in Batman where the Joker's blowing up the hospital, except it's a cloud of polonium behind him instead of, the other thing. Fire.
And
the other thing.
If you're somebody who loves Facebook investigations, I kind of feel like we might be heading to one here. Now, this is a long article, but it's really interesting. And
no, I didn't see this one.
Okay, well, let me sum it up for you.
Yeah.
Facebook, and it's not in the headline, but Facebook is responsible for this. Facebook set up this program, and it's a system of learning. And, right, yeah. You see where this is going. And I think they donated some laptops, but some parents had to buy their own laptop. And you get your Chromebook, and you load this stuff onto it, and it's like an entire curriculum, as if Facebook had designed it for you. And of course, tracking everything that the students do, looking at what they're learning, looking at how they're communicating with each other, following everything. And something weird happened.
Silicon Valley came to Kansas schools, and that started a rebellion.
So it turns out, I'm reminded there's a great story about Henry Ford, where he set up the assembly line, and he said, wow, look how amazing this is. I'm going to be able to make so many cars. And the laborers don't have to know how to build a car. They just know how to do this one thing. And they'll do it 1 billion times a day. And he couldn't keep workers because it was so mind-numbing that that American mind, that, pioneer mentality was just so offended by doing the same thing over and over all day long, they would quit. So he had to keep raising the price. Lucky for him, people took that extra money and bought cars. So still made him a billionaire, but, well, not a billionaire in those days, but adjusted for. So that's kind of seems like what's happening here. Students are not adjusting to this way of learning.
Wow.
And
I can't say I'm surprised, though, because it's kind of insidious. I mean, you have that undercurrent of, that's the common theme in all the dystopian novels is like, all the people knew something was wrong.
Yeah, that's very much what they talk about here, where some of the parents, they can't really put it into words. It's just that the child has changed. They feel a darkness.
Yikes.
And people are literally pulling their kids out of these schools because of this
program.
this curriculum.
Well, in the Matrix, the machines found a way to deal with that by ejecting those humans and letting them live in the sewers.
If you read the administrator's quotes in this one, it's also very Orwellian, where they're just like, children need an adjustment time. They'll be re-educated.
That's totally not Orwellian at all, as in a direct quote from the book almost.
And they talk about, this is in Kansas, so there's a lot of farming communities and stuff. And they talked about when they were driving to do the story, they didn't see, some yards had political signs, other yards had signs against this program.
Wow.
That's how much they hate it.
As someone who eventually wants to have children, this makes me really consider homeschooling, but
I would love if, as a level 1 video, we could get our hands on that program. How cool would
that
that
be
be?
amazing.
Does anybody have access to that out there?
We could take that apart. That would be, yes, contact us.
Yeah,
we could disassemble the analytics and all the stuff. I bet it's going to be scary. It'll be like when those guys in Norway got that phone from, was it Huawei? And it was started phoning home to China immediately. And it's like,
it was like Nokia or something.
Yeah, it's just, what's going on?
Well, speaking of spying, the NSA has, oddly enough, recommended we stop doing that.
The WSJ, the NSA recommends ending the phone surveillance program. Now, that seems like a good headline. Let me explain why it's not.
Well, let's let the EFF.
Oh, yeah. So the EFF had a ruling in a related case. A judge has dodged the legality of NSA mass spying, citing secrecy claims. So this is something we've reported on repeatedly over the years. And the situation here is it's Juul versus the NSA. And at first, it was like Juul versus the NSA can't move forward because the Electronic Frontier Foundation can't show that Juul has been spied upon. And then Snowden, and then there were all these leaks, and it's like, well, clearly Juul has been spied upon. And now the case has been dismissed by this judge saying, well, you can't specifically show that Juul individually was spied upon, just that everyone was spied upon, which is different. This also would seem to exonerate James Clapper. Remember the Clapper testimony where he's like, no, we don't spy on everyone. And then they asked kind of a direct question, and he said, just, well, not wittingly. And the judge would seem to agree with that line of reasoning, which is terrifying.
But I think everybody involved in this case realizes how insane that ruling is. Like,
they got a visit. All of them got a visit from the Men in Black.
And no, I mean the NSA and the judge, they all see this like, okay, if we just stop doing this right now, we might get away with this insane, you can't prove it because it's a secret mentality. I know that it happened, yeah, but it was a secret, so you shouldn't know that it happened, so you can't prove it. That's literally the argument. So let's just shut the whole thing down. Right? It's too expensive anyway.
I want to use this in an assault case. It's like, Ryan, you need to hit me in the face so hard that it knocks me out, and I don't remember you hitting me in the face. No crime has occurred.
You still have the black eye.
That would require...
There's plenty of circumstantial evidence in Juul.
But that would require that you have that secrecy protection. Or no, that my fists have the secrecy protection. Like, I walk into court with gloves on, and I'm like, you can't even see my hands.
You can't prove
How are you going to prove anything?
That argument seems completely insane, and that's because it is.
Speaking of insane things, laws, everybody remembers, how long ago were those fires?
It was a couple of years.
Was it a couple of years ago? I thought it was last year. Anyway.
They have
the California fires.
They have major fires every year.
When California burned, I think it was last year.
It was last year.
The firefighters had that problem with Verizon throttling them while they were trying to,
No, let's be clear. Customer service sold them on a higher tier plan.
They had to complain first.
They had to spend a lot of money.
So that seems crazy, right? I mean, I think when it comes to tax dollars,
no one is above the cap.
I'm opposed to paying taxes on 90% of the things. The fire department is not one of them. I say let's give the fire department the resources they need. That is a real threat that everybody can recognize. So laws came out. Lawmakers jumped on this because, hey, that's an easy win, right? But is it?
Wireless carriers are fighting the ban on throttling firefighters during emergencies. So, committee has passed a California bill spurred by Verizon throttling despite the CTIA objection. So, basically, Verizon was saying, no.
That's not really an emergency, though.
Well, there's two phrases. I can't remember exactly what they were, but it was something like, you can't do any throttling or downgrading or something like that. And they say, oh, that's too vague. You need to say exactly what we can't do in that situation.
Yeah.
And then there was another one about giving them all the resources they need or something like that. And they're like, no, that's undue burden.
I think it's also worth pointing out here that the whole reason for throttling is because the argument is that we lack the network infrastructure management capability to have that handled automatically. Meaning that if the network is saturated, you could deprioritize people that have been using more traffic than other people that haven't been. But when the firefighters upgraded their service, it wasn't lack of capacity. It was an artificial limitation imposed by Verizon to get more money. They're creating artificial scarcity on their network. They're also not upgrading their network as they should, as evidenced by a whole bunch of federal filings. But the short-term problem is, like, they have the capacity. They just want to limit you artificially in order to make you pay for it.
And this wasn't an unlimited plan. The words are impairing or degrading. So they say, just saying impairing or degrading lists everything that they do. You have to be more specific. Everything we do impairs or degrades in some manner. So they'll probably get their way, which is disgusting. And they also, I think they wanted, individual cities can declare an emergency. And the ruling in this bill is, if your city declares an emergency, Verizon opens up the floodgates. They cannot throttle that. Verizon says, that's crazy talk. The governor has to declare that emergency.
Wow.
Yeah. This is not the first time we've talked about this, but it's happening. I think it's just always happening. But it gets into the news from time to time. And this is one of the most terrifying things, because if you think about our government, what do they exist to do, in theory, is to protect us, right, from the worst parts of society. But when do you make the choice? I'm reminded when we broke the Enigma code.
Yeah.
They had to make a choice. They knew some soldiers were walking into ambushes because they had broken the Enigma. But if they pulled those soldiers back, they risked giving away the fact that they had broken the Enigma. So somebody had to make the choice. Do I let this platoon die, or do I protect my secret? And that's
a tough choice.
That's like the train track choice, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's rough to make. But this one seems, it's that same kind of thing, except it's maybe an even more horrifying scenario.
Feds are dropping child porn cases instead of revealing info on their surveillance systems. So this is not a new development, or like even a global development, or even a rise in things. That they're only talking about a dozen, 18 cases or so. And the pattern has been that when people are brought up on these charges, that if it comes down to how did the evidence get collected and there's not a lot of evidence, they don't want to reveal anything about the tools that were used, or methods or whatever, that were used to match these individuals. So is it tools from third-party providers that they don't want to provide the source code? That's the example the article cites. Is it alliances with providers, like service providers like Google? Like Google is trawling through your files and law enforcement doesn't want it widely known that they have that level of access? Don't know.
And you get the impression that a lot of these cases, they throw out a deal and these guys take it immediately because they're guilty. But some of them are smart and or not guilty. They do talk about false positives in the system, which that is, I mean, you talk about your worst nightmare.
We talked about the Google false positive, where it was like, let me compare the contents of the image and see if it's been altered in some way. And as we've seen from like the adversarial holographic banana, sometimes that goes horribly wrong.
But
banana sticker.
You talk about a nightmare scenario is a false child porn allegation.
Yeah.
That is, because a lot of times there's going to be news headlines and nobody's going to see the retractions. Nobody's going to.
So you're just going to be labeled as that forever.
Yeah, exactly. And so when people fight this, when they say, show me your proof, the feds are just dropping the cases because maybe it's false or maybe they just don't want to let you know how they got it. Either way, they're either admitting that they are using a faulty product or they're willing to let child pornographers walk away.
Yeah. So. It's bad for the people that are innocent because the damage is already done just up front. And it's really bad for the guilty because the guilty walk free. So it's like literally the worst possible situation.
Terrible. I imagine that the monitoring that they're using is not designed to catch child pornographers.
Yeah, it's probably just a flag like, hey, can somebody look at this? And they're just like, yeah, tickets for everybody.
But they're
tickets, you get a ticket.
I'm saying they want to spy on other kinds of cases.
Yeah.
And they're just catching these guys by mistake. Yeah. And they're saying, oh yeah, just brush that aside. I need to go after my political opponents, not catch child pornographers.
There have been several cases where viruses will plant that kind of material. Like, you get the wrong kind of virus and it's trying to participate in the darknet.
There was that NSA stuff.
Oh, yeah.
They had one of those from the variable names, it seemed pretty obvious that it was implanting child pornography, which is just, again...
They're weaponizing that.
Nightmare fuel.
Yeah.
To get targeted by something like that. California... Ever since net neutrality was revoked, California has kind of been the head of the spear when it comes to state legislation against the big tech companies. And in the latest one, privacy. They want tech privacy, and they have this great bill. But here's the thing about bills. You get to make amendments to them right before they get voted on. And you know who loves to make amendments? Big technology companies.
California's politicians rush to gut internet privacy law with pro-tech giant amendments. So that is a terrible headline. California was looking to have protection in law for people's personal data for the services they use. Because like with Alexa, anybody who uses the Alexa system on Amazon side knows where your Alexa is and then get your home address. Not a big deal. That's foreshadowing. This has no teeth. None.
It did.
It did.
But
they de-toothed it.
The industry came in there and they pulled those teeth unnecessarily in order to get OxyContin.
It's so toothless, they'd be lucky to gum applesauce.
I don't understand what this stock photo means in this story, but I like it.
I was looking at that too. I mean, it's well done, but I have no idea how it relates to the story at all.
I like the art style. I like this. I like when they draw the skulls with like this little mouth. That's kind of
supposed to be, I think, their teeth, but it's It kind of looks like a ruffle.
It softens them up.
Yeah,
definitely.
I think it's supposed to be death. I guess
the sickle would give it away. Now we talked about was Wing the one that was doing it in Australia?
Yep.
I think so. This is the same thing.
Yep.
So the Aussies beat us, but not by much.
The FAA has paved the way for Alphabet, or one of the Alphabet units, to make its first U.S. drone deliveries. That is Wing. So. Yes, the FAA has said, all right, follow these rules and your drones can make deliveries. Let's see. And they're doing the experiments in Virginia.
Blacksburg, Virginia, or had the word black in the name.
Yeah, that's just outside of D.C., I think. So
yeah. Yeah, Blacksburg, Virginia. So you're going to get the same. We looked at the Wing where it's got the little payload thing, and I don't know if it drops it or it has like a line that it drops it down to or whatever. But
these are not the fancy ones with the inflatable blimps, at least not yet.
But it is cool. I would love to get a drone.
The mothership.
That would be fantastic. And we'll see if one of those drones kills anybody or whatever for the next 6 months or 3 months or whatever, and then maybe we'll all get them.
Do you think the pigeons here would allow that to like encroach on their airspace?
Yeah, the drones are probably big and scary enough to. Although if you're getting like 15 drones a day,
the pigeons are big and scary here too.
If you're getting a lot of drones a day, I imagine the pigeons would acclimate to them. Now, something like a hawk or an eagle would not tolerate it.
Maybe it is a peregrine falcon. There's a tiny little company that used to like train peregrine falcons, but they figured out how to train some kind of bird to take out drones.
Oh, yeah.
And as fast as they can breed those birds, they are selling them worldwide.
Yeah, that's those dive bomber ones, right? Yeah, they get above it and skip down in the rotors. Yeah, that's a cool job if you're a hawk. Or a falcon or whatever they are.
It's way better than just catching fish.
Yeah, you probably get a sweet reward for that too. Huawei, it just keeps coming up. And the big question, I think Huawei has lost in America. As long as Trump is president and we're having this trade war with China, they're out in the U.S. But the battle goes on for the rest of the world, particularly UK and Europe. And it's mixed messages week after week.
Yeah, the verdict is in. The UK is going to let the Chinese firm help build its 5G network. So apparently there was some kind of a review, and that's foreshadowing. Or is that in this section? I forgot.
We do have another one coming up.
Is that the
but this
one?
is about...
Oh, yeah, it's the other one. But, there it is.
We'll just move that one up. But first, the important details about this one is I don't think there's going to be any software in anything that they build.
Well, there's firmware.
But I think it's going to be like antennas and stuff.
Yeah, but there's still firmwares in the radios and that like the 5G protocol itself has some flaws, but these people were basically like, probably not Huawei's fault.
Well, that's the UK. Oh wait, no, this is also the UK.
Yep.
So this is EU.
There was an interesting leak. So this is Wright. Huawei leaks unacceptable. A criminal investigation is possible. So this is Culture Secretary Jeremy Wright, I guess, in the UK. And he's not wrong.
He's right.
Well, it's a weird situation because the people in the UK asked industry experts, like, what's going on with this Huawei thing, and they need candor. Like, it needs to not be a political process. And in order to make it not a political process, it needs to be secret. I get that. I agree with that. Like, this thing should not have been leaked, but it's leaked. And so the result of this was basically, well, I mean, the Huawei stuff might have flaws, but it's probably fine as long as we keep an eye on it and audit it and test it and fix it as we go. I mean, everything is going to have flaws in it. And foreshadowing, Qualcomm stuff has flaws too.
Everybody's stuff has flaws.
But is the flaw deliberately there or not? It's like the elliptic curve. The lesson of the dual elliptic curve is a very important one here.
I believe that's week 6 that we've mentioned the dual elliptic curve. I never get tired of hearing about it.
I'm just saying. It's history repeating itself over and over again. It's the same,
how about
it's the same equation, different variables.
How about history repeating itself in this scenario?
I was thinking about that when I was reading this. I was like, oh, Lord, you guys don't know about India, do you? So the EU has voted to create a gigantic biometrics database. You guys really need to check in with the culture ministry in India. They did this. It ended very badly. Very, very badly.
Well, it didn't end.
Yeah.
It's still going.
There. Yeah.
It continues to, the dumpster fire rages on uncontrollably in India. I am so sorry. They even added their cows to this database. And oh, man, that was just terrible.
This is going to be date of birth, passport number, and other identification details, along with fingerprint, facial scan. I'm sure DNA will be in there eventually. Probably iris scans.
This did not work at all in India. You know why? Because the technology doesn't exist for the level of security that is required for this type of a database.
Now, they claim that this is going to protect you from criminals and migrants.
Or
migrants.
People who don't have passports.
Or, migrants that are stealing your identity. Or it'll be like India, where anybody has access to the biometric database and can steal your state benefits.
And they downgraded the scanners.
Yeah.
So that they could purposely graft. That was a mess. And if you're thinking,
what could go wrong?
If you're thinking those stupid Euros, how could they let this happen? It would never happen in the land of the free.
Never.
Maybe you should look at this tweet about JetBlue.
Facial recognition creeps up on a JetBlue passenger, and she hates it. So what happened here? What unfolded on Twitter was she was able to check in for her flight using a kiosk that had facial recognition, and it's like, did I sign up for this? I didn't sign up for this. How do you have my data? And JetBlue was like, oh, we don't have your data. It's the Department of Homeland Security. And you can opt out of the process. And she's like, but you already have my data. Just because I opt out doesn't mean that you don't get my data. How do I know that it's not going to be leaked all over the internet, as has happened consistently, literally every time there's any kind of data?
And she brought up that it was immediate. There was not enough time for a round trip to happen. There was not a query that could have happened to the government to send her image. Whatever happened was just split second. So they had preloaded the images of all the acceptable passengers. And they kind of admitted it, but not really. They sort of worded it in a way that was like, and ultimately they came back to, listen, you don't even have to do this at all. Which...
You don't have to do it, but your data's still there.
You don't have to do it, but how does it help us if you don't have to do it? It's ridiculous. So if you fly, then the
I bet you're all in one of those databases too.
I'm in at least several of those databases.
Yeah.
I haven't flown for like 5 or 6 years. I think mine's in there.
Yes, you are definitely in there.
But JetBlue is not a government agency.
No.
They should not have those records. No. There should, at
but
best...
they needed them.
There should be a blind yes or no coming back to them. But clearly they're being sent, for all their flight manifests, they're being sent data on all those people.
Those documents, like all of that data is going to be leaked, and then it's going to be, that was public information anyway. And it's like, well, not actually.
Yeah, wow. Welcome to the new world. And part of this new world that we're going to have to get used to are creative new weapons, one of which is hypersonic missiles, which, when you think about rocketry and that kind of thing, these are called scramjets, which is a cool name. I mean, come on, scramjet. You think there's a band named Scramjet? If there's not, I'd get right on that. And the way that they work, again, incredible. But what they can do, which is nuclear annihilation, a little scary.
Chinese hypersonic vehicle could be a model for a future weapon system. This article is pretty cool. I now know the difference between a ramjet and a scramjet. So this is hypersonic, and we're able to estimate its speed. It's faster than Mach 3, but definitely slower than Mach 15, and
that's a ramjet.
Very likely on the low end of the Mach speed because it's reusable.
But a scramjet can go to Mach 15.
Well, we know it's not going to do that, though, because it's reusable.
But they estimate that this is only a testing one. So the difference between a ramjet, you teased it, but you didn't tell them. The difference between a ramjet and a scramjet is at supersonic speeds, the air intake on a ramjet will foil the additional speed because you get, was it shock waves?
Yeah, micro shock waves or something.
So the scramjet fixes that by pulling in air at supersonic speeds. Hey, that's an easy fix, right? And so it can just keep going faster and faster. And it seems like the Chinese want to go in that direction.
They've figured it out. It also, the Popular Mechanics also mentions this looks suspiciously similar to an American design for something like this.
You think there was some patent stealing?
Might have been.
Do you even patent a missile? Isn't that secret?
No, interesting things happen when the government appropriates your patent. It just disappears from the system for a little while, and then about 3 weeks later you get a thing, and it's like, hey, we want this, and it's like, all right, cool, and you're not allowed to talk about it.
So that's pretty terrifying. Supersonic death from the skies. You know, we can all. Krista, does that concern you more or less than the black hole?
I don't know. I think that the black hole is scarier for some reason.
Yeah. Way more likely to kill you.
Yeah. Well, there's also one of the military bases here in Kentucky. Didn't they find out recently that it was leaking?
A small vapor
gases.
leak. Sarin gas. Yeah.
It's fine.
There's some sarin gas really close to my house, and just a small vapor leak. A small one. No need to worry.
You got that positive pressure system in place in your house, right?
For those, for the younger people among you, The Rock, great movie about sarin gas. So anyway,
read up about what happens when you breathe sarin gas.
Speaking of the worst timeline
and nuclear weapons,
Russia launches a sub that will carry a doomsday nuke drone torpedo.
Nuke drone torpedo, another great band name. Look at this guy.
Yeah. 27 years in the making. The sub is massive.
Now it's going to have,
this
thing down here is a docking bay. So it can launch submersibles, baby subs. It can just poop out little baby subs. Then it's got a top loading thing to launch that drone, that nuke drone.
That's not as cute. It's not as cute as the babies.
I'm sure it's small.
It'd probably look cute, and then it's like, oh, that's going to go rain death on someone.
Yeah. And then you notice it's coming towards you.
Oh, I mentioned this earlier accidentally.
Yeah, and we talked about this last week,
we did.
I think, and it was revealed that the people at Amazon are listening to your Alexa stuff. And they wrote it off, and I was like, listen, it's not about them listening to you. It's about making Alexa better.
No one
cares.
Which
begs the question of why they were given this data set.
Amazon's Alexa team can access users' home addresses. So I guess, like, if you hear, on South Park when, like, Kenny's family is arguing, like, they could use the thing and be like, oh, this is, like, in Kenny's neighborhood. This is fine. We don't need to call the police. This is just how people operate that neighborhood.
For whatever reason, latitude and longitude was in the data set that the warehouse or the data center workers got when they listened to your thing. So
oops.
Why would they need that?
Probably also IP address and
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we can figure everything out. Everything.
So they point out that just popping that into Google Map will give you a satellite picture of who you're listening to.
Nice.
Whoever, when you're listening
Wow,
to...
they have a nice house.
Yeah. It's like,
Street view.
it's interesting listening to these people have sex. I wonder where they live.
Malibu, road trip.
You put on your diaper and then just head right on down to Florida, like that one astronaut. Was she going to Florida or was she going to Texas?
She was leaving Florida to travel across country to track down.
Listen, if that ever happened and the guy, like, I know the guy that would be in charge of cleaning that, like, you get the crazy Alexa worker guy that does, like, the diaper thing. Like, he happens to get, like, his ex's thing, and it drives him insane that she's happy or whatever, and he puts on the diaper and gets in the car, and then there's a murder. You know that the guy that's going to handle that for Bezos is going to be that, like, Israeli investigation reporter guy, and we'll never hear about it. Because that guy's that good.
It would be the guy that
Batman. Literally
investigated,
Batman.
what was the rag that had him? The newspaper?
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember either.
I read that article, though, like when Bezos made all those accusations, and I was like, this just sounds like the ramblings of a madman.
But it was true.
Yeah.
I know, but it sounded crazy.
There's nothing crazy about the richest man in the world, Krista.
I mean, that problem is just gone. Like, we would never hear about that because that guy is good.
It's been a good week for Qualcomm. There's probably been a lot of celebration going on. I mean, people just drunk in the hallways at Qualcomm.
They've ordered a hot tub.
There's never not been cake in the conference room all week at Qualcomm. But there was one guy down in the basement that was like the security guy. And he kept like trying to pick up the phone and call people, and he's getting busy. And he's like, "No, listen, this is serious. We've got to do something."
There's cake in the conference room, Bob, and they hang up.
ZDNet has a security flaw lets attackers recover private keys from Qualcomm chips. Firmware patches have been released this month for 46 Qualcomm chips have been impacted. Now look, I'm not saying that if China wanted to be vindictive, they could throw a tantrum and say that the U.S. government made Qualcomm put these flaws there. I'm not saying that could happen. And I'm not saying that China didn't deliberately put flaws in their stuff. But you got to admit, this story, in that scenario, you know, you could spin it however you want.
And this is the safe chip on your phone where it takes the risky stuff.
You're not supposed to be able to do that.
So it's pretty bad. It is patched. But you know what's weird? My phone didn't get an update this week. Did yours?
Nope.
They might be a little behind on those.
Yeah, definitely got a Qualcomm processor.
Not good.
I got an update this week.
Oh! Look at you.
It might have been last week. I don't remember now.
I guess your keys are safe. A lot of car companies, they have these third-party apps or, you know, devices built into their trucks and stuff, and they're tracking where their workers are driving.
Fleet management.
I imagine every one of those Amazon vans has this, right?
Yes.
They probably have Amazon's version.
Anything with OnStar, you can make any OnStar vehicle part of a fleet management.
Well, I think this was too specific. Well, let's talk about that.
So a hacker has found he can remotely kill car engines after breaking into GPS tracking apps. So all these cars having a cellular phone in them and an always-on data connection mean that if you happen to be using ProTrack or iTrack, their service is not super secure.
Well, it's fine, but it has the default password
of 123456. That's the same as my luggage.
Brilliant. Brilliant password. So this guy figured that out and figured out that there's a list of these that he can track online and just started looking into it. Some of them have disable engine button.
Yikes.
What could go wrong?
So he talked about, it's like, you know, if I really wanted to, I could write a little script and do all of these at once.
This is how we're going to set fire to an African child over TCP.
We're all going to hell for what we've done.
So, yeah, that would be bad. I imagine they're going to fix that, but probably how many units that you think they still got in the warehouse, they're never going to bother.
How cool would it be if you were, a Mossad agent or an NSA agent or whatever, and you not only figured out this flaw, but also figured out, like, you know, your target is driving a Tesla, and it's like, man, there's a firmware bug where I can just dead short the batteries, and then that would be, what an amazing way to deal with a target.
Bursting Teslas into flames. Could I resist the urge?
On command, remotely from space.
It would be difficult.
We live in a brave new world.
It'd be difficult to say no to that. I think I would say no to that because I'm not that
a complete
evil.
monster, yeah.
But gosh, it would be tempting.
Would it though?
Oh,
How long until, like, you're playing Fortnite on a console with somebody, and they make somebody really mad, and then they log into your Tesla and,
Blow it up.
do the firmware thing to just dead short the batteries.
the new swatting. Yeah.
It's like, I gotta go, guys. The car in my driveway is on fire.
It's interesting that we brought up Nokia earlier about the Chinese thing, because Nokia has made another very embarrassing misstep with its phones.
Nokia 9 buggy update lets anyone bypass a fingerprint scanner with a pack of gum. Again, is this deliberately bad engineering, or is this the back door?
Is that
that's been
zebra
discovered?
gum?
It's extra.
Oh, it's not even good. It's not even good gum.
So this bug existed previously, but it was not as bad. And after
Well,
the update, it's worse.
They had I think they had like a false negative problem.
Yeah.
And they were like, we're going to make that better.
They did.
And I guess they just dialed down the number, the threshold.
Yeah.
So now, I don't know why extra gum looks like your thumb.
Now, one thing that I read, I don't know if it was this phone, but it was saying that depending on what kind of sensor it was, there's sometimes enough of a residual fingerprint on the sensor that if you can just make it think there's a finger there, it'll read like the grease print of the finger and let them in.
Here's an index finger working as well.
So it'll just accept any finger or anything.
I guess wipe down your Nokia phone every time that you
Every time you use the fingerprint
unlock
sensor.
it. I don't think it's safe to ride a scooter with two people like that.
No, that looks dangerous. I hope that the rude message on this one was.
I hope that
that's not
someone reads
safety.
the headline.
Scooters hack to play rude messages to riders. The rude message to them should be A, you're not wearing a helmet, and B,
No tandem riding.
yeah, that's the rude message.
Lol.
So
You
somebody
idiot.
looked into the file system of these scooters, and there were just some I don't know if they were MP3 or WAV files or something in there, and they said, wonder what would happen if I replaced those, and the scooter just plays them.
God bless the Internet of Things.
They said weird things, like they weren't even funny, and they were maybe English a little bit. I can't remember what they were, but anyway. The Lime scooters also had a previous bug where if you were going at a certain grade at full speed, it would auto-engage the brakes.
Oh,
Funk.
Yeah. So, not a good time for the Lime scooters.
Yeah, we reported on some problems last week, but there's new information here.
Be careful liming around. We talked about Ovia, the
woman's health
menstruation pregnancy tracking app. You know what? They mentioned another one in this article, and the other tracking app for that is called Flow.
I've heard that. Yeah. That's
So,
a common phrase.
well, yeah. But, anyway, that's not the only kind of app that exists. There's also mental health apps.
This is news to me.
Yeah, and those mental health apps, which have your deepest, darkest secrets, well...
Do I trust the person who made this app? That mental health app might share your data without telling you. Woo! This article's from The Verge. And it's a little bit fear-mongering. There's not, like, a lot of evidence or data here. They're just like, we don't know who has these.
In theory, though, like, if you're putting that kind of information into an app and, like, if somehow the app, like, you trigger a threshold where it's like, this person's going to hurt themselves or others, does it report that somewhere, or... Because that's the way, like, therapy works.
I don't know, but it's not designed like that, I don't think. The idea here is that these apps are partnering with, like, Google and Facebook, kind of like the Cambridge Analytica and the teen tracking app. Remember that one? And so the idea is this is going into your profile, how screwed up you are. And
it's not actually trying to help you, like, manage your mental health at all.
Yeah. So if I go onto Facebook and I say, I would like to advertise to people with schizophrenia, then they can show you certain ads on Facebook. But it just points out that we seem to be overwhelmingly willing to put intimate details into our phones. And we don't realize who else is looking at that.
It's more and more like that movie Her, where, like, the guy's just talking to the AI constantly, and then it's like, oh my gosh.
And on that same note, now I'm going to admit, I don't think any of us probably got to read this one because it's paywalled, and I didn't find a better version. Did you?
No.
No. Retailers are tracking where you shop and where you sleep So yeah, this is not really anything new, but the normies are starting to notice, I guess.
Yeah.
A lot of your apps that you have, like your shopping apps, your loyalty apps, things like that, they're doing stuff in the background a lot of the time.
Well,
they want to know where you live.
the one paragraph they allowed us to see here talks about this mall in Texas, and by tracking these things, they figured out that the people that came to the mall were old and had pets. And so what did they do? They added a bunch of things that old people and pets like, and their traffic went up 40%.
Yeah,
which is huge.
So if you've got here, the mechanism for this is pretty simple. On iPhones, it'll randomly generate the MAC address for Wi-Fi, but you can pull if you got an app on the phone, you can pull other uniquely identifying information. Apple's kind of sort of half-heartedly closing the door on that. But if you install a physical kiosk in a mall and somebody walks in with like Bluetooth or Wi-Fi or whatever, you can match that ID. And so even if your app is running, like even if your Wi-Fi at MAC address or your Bluetooth MAC address changes, if that app is running in the background on your phone, it's like at 2:37 p.m. on Sunday, the MAC address was this, and I saw that MAC address at this mall. It's like, oh, this person is at this mall. So it's not even that you have to have GPS like allowed. It's just that I saw a beacon from your phone in this area. And retailers have been doing that forever.
They also do the supersonic kiosks.
Oh yeah, where it can only hear a high frequency.
Yeah, so
a
lot of dirty tricks that they can do.
It really, and old people don't know to be on the lookout for, like, it's not part of their threat model. They don't know.
They're just walking the dog.
Yeah.
They don't know that next week there's going to be, it was called what was it called? It's a photo booth for you and your pet. Santa paws. Oh, look at that.
Also, what mall allows you to walk your dog inside of it unless it's an outdoor
This
mall?
one now.
I saw a dude taking his dog into our mall, the old mall here.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, if I'd known that, I might have done that with Rue over the winter.
You should try that.
Well, I mean, and it's warm now, so it doesn't really matter. But
Although if Rue left a big steaming poop inside the mall, that would be
she wouldn't do that.
fortunate.
She might pee.
Oh,
But
yeah.
she might. I could see her peeing.
She
in the
would
mall.
never.
But I don't
She
think
would
she
never
poop.
eliminate somewhere she's not supposed to.
She hasn't in a long time.
You remember Kodi?
Great.
Remember how much everybody hates Kodi, in the industry at least?
Oh, it's because it's so amazing.
And so they've been vilifying it, and competitors are bound to crop up, right? Except there's a darkness.
Uh-oh. Kodi Alternative Mobdro, what a great name, steals
a good
users' Wi-Fi passwords and seeks access to shared media and installed apps. So apps having access to Wi-Fi passwords, that's not cool. Like, what operating system would even allow that?
Krista, what do you think's on that screen?
I don't know. The stock photo is weird because at first, I thought it was like a woman giving birth, like they were in a hospital room because that room is so sterile looking. And then scroll down, it was like, oh, she's holding an iPad.
I don't think anybody would have that reaction upon learning that their app has been spying on them. They're just like, do what now?
Why would I have to scroll down?
I don't know. I couldn't see what they were looking
You
at.
just can't see. They're looking at an iPad.
Well, no, I see that now, but when you were scrolled up all the way at the top, I couldn't. It was cut off.
I was just wondering what the picture is on that
It's a
screen.
terrible stock photo. Just terrible.
It's a rare Pepe.
It's okay. And finally, we'll wrap it up with an interesting problem that you may have if you purchased certain lightweight Windows systems, laptops, tablets, things of that nature that run Windows 10.
Systems with small disks won't be able to install Windows 10 2019 update. So if your drive where Windows is installed is less than 32 gigs, you don't get it. You also have to have like 7 gigs of free space or something crazy like
We
that.
should have put this with the USB story.
No,
Yeah.
well, 32 is the minimum, but they're immediately going to partition 7 of that 32 to have installation buffer space. So you're going to lose 7 gigabytes of your existing drive, and if it's less than 32, you're out.
I always thought that was funny that Microsoft just can't, like, they wanted to sell like the Windows tablets, and they're like, look, it's a 128 gig tablet, and it's like, yeah, but you're taking almost the entire 128 gigs for the operating system. Whereas if you get like a 128 gig iPad, it's like a gigabyte is the operating system on the iPad, and that's it.
They need that room.
For what?
It's critical.
They just need it. And don't ask
Mostly
about it
for
again.
DRM.
And tracking and monitoring service.
Yeah.
It's like, listen, we need this advanced AI that's doing face and image recognition and voice recognition at all times.
And of course, mission critical items like 3D paint.
They got rid of Space Cadet Pinball. I'm not interested in any.
Did they really?
It's not bundled anymore.
Didn't they get rid of MS Paint? People had like a big backlash.
It's
That's
Paint
classic
3D now.
Paint. Yeah, yeah. They made it bigger and more bloated and useless.
Like it's a paradigm for the operating system.
All right, that's all we got. And Friday we'll be doing social media and robot and AI and nonsense.
The best stories.